Good morning. So, yeah, Friday last week, we were talking about our readings on Locke and Hobbes. We got through most of what we needed to with Locke, but I just wanted to show you something here. Some of the things, like the key highlights here, okay, for Locke. Obviously, guys, he talks about natural rights. And those rights are life, liberty, and property. Guys, now, those rights are given to you by whom? God. So if they're given to you by God, they're natural, like state of nature, God, okay? If they're given to you by God, then they can't be taken away. Okay, so what Locke talks about in his second treatise of civil government is this. If government doesn't secure these rights, it is the right of the people to overthrow that government. Okay? He also talks about how the legitimacy of government comes from people. This is your social contract, not from God. Legitimacy of government is a social contract where we choose our government. Okay, that's where the legitimacy of our government comes from. It comes from the people, not God. Okay, yes, God gives us these rights. Okay, that should be secured by government. Okay, but we choose who gets to rule over us, not a divine right, if that makes sense. Okay, and so when he's writing this is obviously, like I said the other day, it's treasonous. Okay, so I want you to flip over in your book to page 30, if you will. And on page 30, guys, I have an outline of the Declaration of Independence, or just the Declaration itself. Okay, on page 30. And if you jump down to the second paragraph in the Declaration of Independence, okay, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they're endowed by the Creator with certain unalienable rights. Now, guys, Jefferson wrote this, but there were 5 men on the Declaration Committee. Okay, the other members of that committee besides Jefferson were John Adams, Ben Franklin, Livingston, and Sherman. There were 5 people. Okay, they argued about this word, unalienable. Okay, they had debates over it. Okay, and they finally settled on this word. They didn't use natural rights; they used unalienable. Okay. That among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, the people. Okay? That whenever any form of government becomes destructive to these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it and institute new government. So, guys, generally what we do is every 2 years in this country, we have elections. And this is how we alter our system, okay, through elections. Okay, but they do say if you do not secure these, you can abolish it. You can abolish that government, okay, and form new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Okay, so again, Jefferson is borrowing from Locke, not plagiarizing, but definitely borrowing from Locke. Okay, and so as I mentioned on the first test, guys, you'll be kind of comparing and contrasting the view of Hobbes, social contract theory, and Locke. Now, we're not going to include Rousseau in that discussion, but we do want to discuss Rousseau. And so we're back to page 19 on Rousseau. Okay. Now, huh?
I like How you say Rousseau?
Rousseau. Okay. Jean-Jacques Rousseau. Want to do it that way. All right. Who's actually Swiss. He's not British. He's Swiss. Okay. Now, if you go to Switzerland, it's an interesting country. I haven't been there, but it is an interesting country. They have what are called cantons. They don't use states, they use cantons. Okay. And so, depending on which country that canton borders, so you have Italian Swiss cantons, French Swiss cantons, and German Swiss cantons. So people in Switzerland that will often speak those languages that border their country, right? So, like, just take Texas for an example. There's a lot of people in Texas that know how to speak Spanish. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. Just, you know, so it's similar to like that. So the first Ebrights I have found came from a French Swiss canton that immigrated to the New World in the 1740s. That's about all I know. All right. So Rousseau, he's kind of a teacher guy. Like he writes a lot about education. You guys understand this, what's called kinesthetic education, where you learn by doing something. Okay, so if you know how do you know how to work on a car that maybe it's a starter that's something wrong with the school bus, because you've worked on it before, you've done that before. You learn by doing. Now that's hard for me to do in this class and in history class. To like we could recreate, do skits all day, every day about how history went down, where you could actively learn participating in your learning. It's hard to do in a history class or a government class. Okay. Now you could do some of that, but it takes a lot of time, and I don't do a lot of that. I'm sorry, doing this. Okay. All right. So now when it comes to his theories, you jump down to the second section there on page 19, theory on the state of nature. Rousseau believed that there was historical development of the state of nature. Originally, it was peaceful and free, only because the abundance of nature and the small size of population. Once societies and leisure time began, people began to compare themselves, resulting in shame, envy, pride, and contempt. I'm pretty sure that stuff existed before, like, we had lots of people, like Cain and Abel. I think it kind of started at the beginning. Okay, because we're human beings, but we'll let Rousseau have his thing. Okay, more importantly, with the creation of public property that Locke so highly valued, society turned to greed, competition, vanity, inequality, and social classes. Private property is what led people out of the state of nature. That's interesting. When you were reading this, did anybody get a sense of, like, other people that might have studied Rousseau and written other philosophies that came after? Did this ring a bell to anybody? Karl Marx. Yeah. Yes, that's what I see here. Karl Marx. And so I looked it up. Like, was Marx a disciple of Rousseau? And so, yes, in part. Now, not totally. I mean, Marx is pretty original, but certainly a lot of political, economic philosophers have studied all of these men, and certainly Marx did use some of Rousseau's philosophy in his. Okay, so dig a little further. Okay, Rousseau argued that government was established through a social contract, what we're talking about, which ostensibly was to protect the rights of everyone, as Locke said. But really, it was set up by the powerful to ensure the continued dominance of private property and therefore of society. He argues we need to change this by entering into a new social contract. The legitimate sovereignty is derived from everyone's submission to a general will. Now, this is a term that Marx uses, a general will. And while such obedience may not be in everyone's personal interest, it's indeed what they really want, even if they don't realize it. They may need to be forced to be free, he says. He argued that this could be done through direct democracy, where every person takes part in the decisions of government, constantly reinforcing the social contract. He did not think that representative democracy, where people would elect representatives to vote for them, was a strong enough system to save us from the harms of private property. This, Rousseau's philosophy, does inspire the French Revolution. Okay, and you guys have studied that some, the French Revolution. Have you studied this? Okay, and apparently in English you might not any longer be reading A Tale of Two Cities. Apparently, your senior year, okay, which is about the French Revolution and American Revolution, like London and Paris, Tale of Two Cities. Okay. The French Revolution. What do you remember from the French Revolution? Guillotines. Come on, guillotines. Right? It's bloody. They're cutting off people's heads. Why? The bourgeois. Bourgeoisie. You guys remember this? Any of this? The rich, the powerful. We got to bring them down. Taking them down. Okay? French Revolution is the mob, guys. It's the mob. Okay? And they are going to tear down the aristocracy. And they do. And it's bloody. This is direct democracy, guys. Okay? Where everybody gets to make the decision about everything. Okay, now, the founders of this country, they feared this. In fact, the founders referred to democracy as mobocracy. Listen, when we get upset about something, when we get angry, we tend to act irrationally. Yes? When we act irrationally, bad things happen. Okay? And you can just look throughout history. Okay? In history class, we were talking the other day about race riots in 1919. Now, these weren't race riots like you saw, like Black Lives Matter riots, or in 1990s in Watts in LA, after Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated, riot. No, these riots were white mobs going into black neighborhoods and killing black people. Okay, this is a mob mentality. Okay, people upset about something that may have happened, they're going to get justice themselves. This is what the French Revolution looked like, the mob. Okay, and our founders said, no. We're not doing this direct democracy thing. Okay, so they saw it as dangerous. Right, so certainly Rousseau's writings have a big impact worldwide. Okay, and if in fact Marx and others studied this and came up with their own philosophies, certainly Marx had a huge impact on the 20th century, still having an impact in the 21st century. Okay, so I think that covers Jean-Jacques Rousseau to a certain extent. Okay, so our founders went with Locke and representative democracy. We did not go with Hobbes and an absolute monarchy. Did not go with direct democracy. Now, direct democracy can work in a very small setting. Okay. Now, could we do that today? I mean, let's say the government paid for everybody to have one of these. And the government paid for everybody to have cell service. And every morning you woke up and there would be a list of poll questions. Okay? Should the United States continue to fund the Ukrainians in the Ukraine war today? Should we pledge another $5 billion to Ukraine today? Now, you guys get the answer. Yes or no? Okay. Everybody in America gets the answer. It's a direct democracy. Okay. What other pressing issues are out there? Let's vote on it. Everybody gets a say. Now, what's the problem with it? Not everybody's knowledgeable about every topic. In fact, a lot of us are not knowledgeable about anything. Am I right? So why would we do this? That'd be stupid, right? And then people would get upset, right? You think we'd be in more wars if we had a direct democracy or less wars? I don't know. I mean, people would be like, no, man, I'm not sending my kid over there to fight. Who knows what would happen, okay? Certainly, we would make some emotional decisions, maybe less rational decisions, if it's the people, okay? Certainly less uneducated. But, you know, so we don't live in a democracy, right? Okay, we understand this. We don't live in a democracy. We use democratic principles, but we don't live in a democracy. Okay, so that's a great segue back to the notes. Because the last thing we had in the notes was different forms of government based on geographic distribution of power. Yeah, we looked at unitary, confederal, and federal government, yes? So the next way we're going to look at forms of government, are you ready? Is based on the number of people that can participate. So, header, forms of government, number of people that can participate. Number of people that can participate. Now, you might be able to figure out where I'm going with this. Like, say only one person gets to participate. What are we going to call that? We could call that a monarchy. We could call it a dictatorship. Let's go with dictatorship. Okay, so the first form of government we're going to look at when we look at the number of people that can participate is dictatorships. So how about a definition for dictatorship? Ready? Yes?
One leader who holds all control.
One leader? Possibly. Let me give you a definition. Okay? Those who rule do not follow the will of the people. Those who rule do not follow the will of the people. They dictate to the people. Okay? Now, let's make this confusing. There's a lot of different types of dictatorships. Okay? All dictatorships, we're talking umbrella terms here. Authoritarian or Atarian? Is that an I or an A? I think it's an I. I think you're right. Okay. Authoritarian. All dictatorships are authoritarian. It is an I. So let's define authoritarian. Power is absolute and unchangeable. I need an E in there, don't I? Gosh, so bad at spelling. I went to public school. smart aleck.
Still want to count this
Okay, all right, let's throw it out there. Give me some dictator. What type of dictatorships we got? Huh?
Royalty.
Okay, so we call that a monarchy. It's kind of your divine right. Doesn't have to be divine right, okay? But it's like a king or a queen. Are there any monarchies in the world today? No. Now, that's a constitutional monarchy, not a dictatorship.
Dubai.
Dubai? They have a king?
Oh, wait, no, they're capitalist.
Yes.
Yeah.
They still may have a king.
I
I don't know about Dubai. I know Saudi Arabia has a monarchy.
That's what it was.
Okay. Kuwait is a monarchy. United Arab Emirates is a monarchy. Qatar is a monarchy. Which I think isn't that where Dubai is? I think Qatar. Isn't Dubai a city?
Yeah.
That's a city. In
Qatar.
Qatar, yeah.
It's called Qatar. Oh,
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh,
UAE, huh?
like, that's how you say it.
What?
Cutter.
I call it Qatar.
Can you spell Qatar for us?
Qatar.
QUATR.
Yeah.
The apostrophe.
That was.
Yeah. I don't know.
It's like Cutter.
All right, let's just stay with Saudi Arabia. Okay, the kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Okay, there's king, there's princes. Okay, there's no princesses. Saudi Arabia. Sorry, ladies. Okay, but there are princes. Okay, now a monarchy is also an autocracy, not an autocracy, an autocracy. Rule by auto, meaning one. Yeah. Good. All right. Let me throw out a name and tell me what kind of dictatorship this is. Kim Jong-un. What kind of dictatorship is that? If you were to see a picture of Kim Jong-un, what would he generally be wearing? Military suit. Okay. What about Fidel Castro? Same thing. Saddam Hussein. Adolf Hitler. Joseph Stalin. Remember, communism is an economic system. Fascism is partially an economic system. Okay? These are military dictatorships. Generally, they are autocratic as well. They are ruled by one. Generally, military dictatorships are ruled by one. Not always. Now, some of these military dictatorships are totalitarian. Like Kim Jong-un in North Korea. This is a totalitarian dictatorship. Totalitarian military dictatorship. So what food North Korea does produce or import, it goes first to the military. Does that make sense? And they control every aspect of life. So this means they control every aspect of life. Through force. Or, as you might say, ruling with an iron fist. Totalitarian. Can a monarchy be totalitarian? Yes. Doesn't have to be. It can be. So what you're looking at here, guys, is some dictatorships are brutal. Some are not. Okay? Some they control every aspect of life, some they don't. Okay. So would Nazi Germany be considered totalitarian? Pretty much. Okay. All right. Now, we have autocracy. We also have oligarchy. Is another type of dictatorship, an oligarchy, which means rule by few. Now, probably the best example I can give today of an oligarchy would be China. Ruled by a few or a small group of people. Okay? In China, that few is members of the Communist Party. There's 1.2 billion people in China. Fewer than 1% of them are members of the Communist Party. So membership in the party has benefits. So the members of the party choose the leaders of China and the president of China, Xi Jinping, who's the current president of China. Okay, Xi, refer Xi, Xi. That's how we refer to president of China. Okay, this is an oligarchy. So the members of the Communist Party can remove President Xi. Does that make sense? And replace him. Now, Russia, when it became the Soviet Union, they started with Lenin. Okay? Lenin dies. Stalin takes over. Okay? Now, Stalin basically said, listen, I know we have the Politburo, the Communist Party of the Soviet Union, but you're not going to change leaders. I am the leader. Okay, so if you threaten Stalin's power, even if you were a communist, member of the party, what happened to you? You died, you disappeared, you were canceled. Okay, seriously, like you were canceled. So he became an autocrat. What started at the Soviet Union started as an oligarchy, but became an autocracy. Does that make sense? Now, President Xi, from what I understand, in China, is extremely popular, or he has been, and so is his wife. So they're a very powerful first couple, and he's been in power now for more than 10 years. Okay, so at one point, a couple of years ago, they made him president for life. Now, I don't know if that's gonna stick because the Chinese economy right now is going through the hardest time it's been through in decades.
So, if the Communist Party only makes up 1% of China,
Yeah.
population, how do they have the power to overrule or just overthrow the president if the other 99%?
Just the members of the party. They meet like our Congress. They meet, okay? And if there was a power struggle within the Communist Party and there were enough of them, they would remove it. Like, might have to come by force.
So are there can anyone just go into the Communist Party, or is there
Now,
how do people get into
it's hard. A lot of it's family, like you're born into it. If you are, let's say you start a business and you do really well, and you work really well with the party, and that means you're gonna sacrifice for the party. You're gonna do what they want. And you do that willingly. Like, you come to them and say, hey, I've got this going. You guys know Jack Ma? He owns like an Amazon in China. He's super rich. He went crossways. So he kind of disappeared for a couple of years. He's back. Had to be re-educated. You know what I mean? Okay.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
What is-
Did you hear about this? Was it the tennis player? It's Chinese, or I think she was a tennis player. She was really good. And she complained about some of her coaches were like, remember what happened to our gymnasts? This doctor with our gymnasts? Oh my gosh, right? This Nat, you guys know the story?
He was
He was sexually assaulting our gymnast. He was the team doctor. He was doing the level of pressure in Olympic sports like that is insane. Like, there's only 6 girls that get to go. You know what I mean? So if the team doctor, he's saying, hey, we need to do this, and these are young girls, and he abused that authority and sexually assaulted mostly. There was this tennis player in China. Something similar was happening. She went public with it. And she disappeared. She stopped showing up at tournaments and stuff. And what happened to this girl? She spoke out against the party. She got canceled. Now she's actually back. She had to be re-educated. Not to speak ill of the party, you understand? She was politically incorrect. She had to be re-educated. So, I forget how we got on this conversation. Did I answer somebody's question? Sorry. I thought that was funnier than you, but apparently. Yes, so, okay. All right, let's just get back to this. If you have more questions, just ask me. Okay. All right, so this is an oligarchy, okay, ruled by a few. Can you think of any other types of dictatorships?
the religious oligarchy.
The religious.
Oligarchy,
Yeah, that we call that a what? What? The papal, what? The Pope?
The Caesar fate, is it called Caesar?
Yeah.
I can't remember it.
Yeah.
theocracy.
What?
You spelled it?
That's
Give me a
not
second. Let me look. Let me check.
Yeah, spell it.
right. There's no R.
Or write it down.
Yeah, why is there an R in there? Good thing this isn't showing over here. Theocracy. Now, personally, guys, I can only think of 2 on the planet today. You just mentioned one. The Pope, Vatican City.
Not anymore.
It's not a theocracy?
Well, no, I mean like in different.
I'm talking about Japan used to be.
Oh, yeah. Down to the emperor. Yeah. You're trying to think of the other one. Okay. My two history students. What's the other one? 1979. Revolution, Middle East. The Islamic Revolution of 1979 in the country of, no,
Iran.
yes,
Oh, sweet.
Iran. Okay,
Good job.
okay. Iran is ruled by religious, okay, mullahs. Okay, the mullah. This happened in 1979. We'll talk about this in history class, but guys, Iran, which is Persia, studied the Persians, okay, was very westernized in the 1970s, okay. The West had exported our culture to different parts of the world, okay, and the more fundamentalist Muslims in Persia and Iran were like, we don't want this. We don't want Western culture. This violates our religious beliefs, the way people are acting, the way they're dressing, the way they're behaving. And so the religious crazies took over. This would be akin to, guys, us living under Old Testament law run by priests in America. You guys want to live under Old Testament law, under the direction of priests, instead of a civil government that we elect? You want to live in that society? I kind of like bacon.
Oh, that's good.
You guys like bacon?
Mhm.
I want to eat it whenever I want. Would we be able to eat it if we lived under a religious dictatorship? No. Not from the Old Testament. Thank God for Jesus in the new covenant. Yes? There's a lot to be grateful for. Seriously, there's a lot to be grateful for. Our church was reformed with Jesus. You know what I mean? Like Christianity, it's different than the Torah. Okay? So that's good. All right. So listen, when you talk about these different types of dictatorships, that kind of sums up most of them. Yes. Oh, like that. All right. Do you have any questions, St. Brain? No? Okay. You got 35? You got to be kidding me. Time flies when you're having fun. Okay, so we're done with dictatorships. Tomorrow we'll talk about different forms of government based on population, the number that can participate. We're going to look at democracy, different types of democracy. Okay? All right, stop recording. Yes.